Hey everybody, it's Mario with Motorcycle Knuckle Busters, and we're back with you this evening, bringing another incredible guest. I'm really excited about this person that's coming on with us. I don't even know where to start, so we you see certain people who are enigmas in an industry, and this person certainly is. I have a lot of respect for our guest because he captures what the lifestyle is. Um, Everything from shooting major events to finding cyclists out there on the road. When I see him at work and I see him with this gear, everything from down on the ground, crawling with his knee pads and getting that right angle, creating the right lighting to capture a moment to get a beautiful picture of a bike or somebody going down the road when he's hanging off the back of a motorcycle. It's just absolutely incredible to watch him work. So I'd like to introduce to everybody Michael Lichter.
Hello,
Hey, Michael.
Hi there.
Hey, I'm so happy you joined me tonight. This is really exciting, and I'm talking about watching you at work, and I had a lot of fun this year at Sturgis. I was watching you shoot that Indian Larry tribute bike, and it's a lot of fun to see you actually in your element doing your thing because you're so focused. You see all the details and you're so absorbed in your work, and it's fascinating from an outsider to see that. So I just what really makes you click? How did you come about getting into this industry and doing what you do?
Well, it's funny that you introduced me in that manner because what I really love to do is watch people doing what they love to do. So the way you described what I'm doing and being in the moment and totally involved with what I'm doing and focused on it, that's what I love the most is focusing on people that are in the moment. They're doing what they love. That's my work is kind of split in two though, because a lot of my work and is out there photographing the culture and the people involved with motorcycling, and the other half is like right here in my studio space where I shoot bikes, and that studio space can move around. I have one in Sturgis. I'll set one up at some bike shows occasionally, and then sometimes we do location shooting outside as well. So it all varies. There's a lot of different aspects to it, but mostly it's split between the bikes and the people. I love them.
Absolutely, and I've seen that, and I see how it is. I see that divide and everything else. And I've had the pleasure. I think at the 115th, it was 115th Harley Davidson Milwaukee. You gave a talk talking about your work and describing the pictures and the moments and everything else. And that was a really special time. I've really cherished listening to you and getting your perspective on those things, but you've captured the perspective that most people wish they could. And that's extraordinary. So what brought you to photography? I mean, did you know this from an early age? This is what you wanted to do?
When I was 13 years old, my dad loaned me a World War II Pentacon 35 millimeter camera, and I loved it and just started taking pictures. I had a dark room. I built a dark room in the basement at that time, so no light would leak in. And my parents would come banging on the door school night and saying, "It's 1 in the morning. You've got to go to bed," stuff like that. But yeah, I loved it from a very early age.
So in those early days, what were the things that you tried to capture then?
In the beginning, it was learning about photography. So again, I was self-taught. I don't even know how I did it at 13. I mean, I remember my uncle took me in a dark when I was 5 and let me help him develop a print and develop some film. So a lot of it was technical and just learning, and then learning how to make a good print. I considered myself a master printmaker. When I went to college, I was in the fine arts program, and I took photography, but I've never taken a photography class per se, or a how-to class. So when I started photography in college, it was again in the fine arts program. So I started at the 400 level and the graduate level. So there was no how-to classes. It was just critiques. You'd bring prints in and talk about them. So somehow I missed that whole other thing. I had to teach it to myself. And then I did that for a number of years. I got a little bit disillusioned with the art world and really just got excited about commercial photography. I started working with Easyriders My first prints were in there in '79. And then I did that for quite a while and started working with other magazines when I learned how much fun that was. And then eventually built a backyard studio and shot bikes. That eventually led to a career in commercial photography, where I did annual reports and shot for the likes of IBM, and Kraft Foods was my biggest client for a while. My last big client was, I can't remember the name, large computer company, name just blitzed from me right now. But yeah, I mean, I'd go to Europe and go through a big European capital and see pictures of computers 5 stories tall on the sides of buildings that I shot. It's kind of cool.
Oh, that's incredible. So now, as far as motorcycles, I mean, I know you say in '79 you started with the Easyrider, but was there a love, a love of the motorcycle and that world? Because this is a collision of two worlds, photography and motorcycles.
It definitely is. And 2 passions, really. So in 1976, a friend of mine loaned me his 47 knucklehead chopper with a long Springer on it. And it was just such a blast. That was it. I never turned back after that. I had experiences as a kid riding friends' mini bikes and little Honda Trail 70s and Trail 90s and whatever you can get on. And that was all fun, but it wasn't my deal. But after I rode that knuckle, and that sort of changed everything. Within, I think it was a month later, I had a Honda 450 and had that for a year, and then I got a shovel head. So in '77, I had the shovel head that I still have now that Billy Lane rebuilt for me. Is a beautiful little bobber.
Wonderful. Yeah, because you just can't, I don't think any other photographer could bring to light what you do with your work without having that absolute love and passion for motorcycles. And I think that's what the whole bike world responds to, is that you capture the moments and the vision that they can relate to. It's all relatable to them. And I think that's quite extraordinary. I want to bring up a couple of pictures because it's kind of illustrates you. So I love this one on the left because, there you are. So you're geared up, so that was a couple of years ago when you were doing your skinny show. Well, the shirt's from the skinny show, obviously, that you did at the Buffalo Chip. But
that was, the last portrait I shot most of the people on the motorcycle chase in the summer that year.
Okay.
I guess that was probably I think that was before the skinny, just before it. And I was doing all these portraits, and my assistant, Melissa Shoemaker, said, hey, jump in there, we'll get a picture. And so I did that. And that's just how I happened to be dressed. I was shooting, and there I was. So it does kind of capture. A lot of people feel like it's ready to go into some military action or SWAT team, but I'm dressed for what's appropriate. It's not a show for me. I typically don't wear Easyriders material, saying, oh, I'm Easyriders photographer and all this. I just I prefer to just go about my way and do my thing. But I do wear, it's all practical. I wear the knee pads because I'm down on my knees a lot. And I've been wearing knee pads for probably 25 years. A lot of times I wear cut off on me that cameras hang off and spring back and forth. And it's just by years of doing it that a system develops. So anyway, that's how I look.
Yeah, I love it. But yeah, it does. It looks like you're getting ready to go into a war zone. Yeah, I love it. And then we got this picture up here on the right. And the reason I wanted to show that is that, I know you go to Italy, you go to various countries, and, when Michael Lichter shows up, that's a special event to these people. You're not just known here, going to Sturgis or going to Daytona or any of these places. You're known worldwide. And I think that's quite extraordinary. And, I know, like, you've got the skinny shirt on, so kind of tie back. I think a couple of years ago, you were in Verona, and you saw a bike there, and you liked the bike and wanted to come over for the show. And what was that bike called?
That bike was called the Skinny. So
exactly.
I had to have that bike in the exhibition. It's Fabrizio Cador's bike from '70s company. They're a helmet company in Italy. A wonderful person. And I said, you've got to be in it. And, normally we do unveils, brand new bikes, but that bike was not, it had just been shown there. And he agreed to it, so it was brought to America. And if anyone's interested in that bike's still here and it's available for sale, because it's a museum quality, spectacular, stunning motorcycle that I could just spend hours looking at the details on, of which you could see on my website. I photographed it a couple of times. But yeah, that sort of summed up the Skinny for me, even though the show and the theme and the logo had all been planned out. When I saw it, it's like, oh my God, this is too perfect. So
I just thought that was wonderful. And I was talking to Fabrizio because we got talking because I fell in love with the bike like you did. And, you know, it's, you get lost in the details of that bike. And then we come to find out, you know, he's from Vicenza, and I was stationed when I was in the Army. I was stationed in Vicenza, Italy. So, you know, we were talking about landmarks and things there. And, you know, we just became kind of fast friends because we had a lot of relatable stuff, you know, not just the motorcycles, but, you know, Italian culture, obviously, because he's Italian, and talk about those things. So great guy, but wonderful bike. And it's for sale, huh? So, yeah, wow.
anybody's interested, give me a call. Get in touch
All
with
right.
me.
Yeah, well, yeah, we got to get that out there. That's a beautiful bike. So
Yeah.
now we got a couple more pictures because just going through these, you know, so this is what I'm talking about. You know, is capturing the culture. And I'm kind of curious, you know, so like we got the guy, you know, here on the upper left-hand corner, you know, we've got a gentleman in a bullhorn. And so what was going on there?
You know, there was something going on that I'm not showing. It was some girls up on a stage, or I think at that time that was City Park in 1979, I believe. So on top of a bus. But to me, I often like to turn away from what everybody else is looking at, because I'm fascinated with people themselves, you know, and the randomness of what I get in those shots, I really enjoy. It's like you look at it and you go, what are they all looking at? And to me, that didn't matter. You know, I just love seeing the faces, focusing on them, seeing what they're wearing. And it's certainly, with hindsight, you're talking about a picture that's now 43 years old. And times have changed. You know, I mean, Harley didn't enforce their trademark at that time. You see very few Harley shirts. And if they were bootlegged by two-wheelers in Denver or some other company because they didn't care. Nobody cared. And a lot of times it was just wearing a button-down work shirt, plaid shirt, a T-shirt may say, you know, Hornblower's Farm Supply or something like that, wherever you worked. And it just,
Right.
the simpler time. You know, there's no cell phones to get on. There's no social media to broadcast on. People were more in the moment than they are now oftentimes. At least that's what it seems to me.
And you know, and that's a great point, you know, how things have changed and everything else. But then I think when I look at that picture there in the upper right hand corner, to me that kind of shows how things haven't changed, because even though that was 40 years ago, you can go to any rally now, you're going to see some guys having a beer, somebody working on a bike, putting it back together. And I see that scene repeated time and time and time again. And so in many ways, there's other things that are timeless. And that's the brotherhood and people banding together, working on their bikes, keeping them running, and keeping those road warriors up and going.
There's something else it brings up. To me, a lot of this is, it becomes part of history. And I've always said that while I focus on a subculture here in America, that subculture represents the broader culture and the country itself. So in my photographing the motorcycle culture for over 40 years now, that in many ways is the history of our country. So things change. And also, people come and go. And I see that so much. I mean, I hate to tell you how many people that I have listed in my database, it's all on the computer now, are no longer with us and died. The guy in that picture that you just pointed to, that's sitting on the side and just looking, he's no longer with us. He died a few years ago. It's Little Mouse. He was here in Boulder, Colorado. We all used to ride up to Sturgis together. And he's Little Mouse only by the fact that there was a guy from Idaho in our campground that was Big Mouse. But yeah, you look at the picture on the bottom, that's the corner of Junction in Maine. That was the barber shop. And after some years, that became very known as Rossini's tattoo parlor. And it was really famous for that whole scene there. Then the whole building got torn down, and it's Hot Leathers now on the corner. You know, there's
Oh yeah.
you know,
Okay.
there's Honda and Triumph choppers in the picture. And, you know, anymore, there'd be 1,000 people that you'd see in that same viewpoint now. So
yeah, and you see, and this is what I love about photographs and looking at some of your work, and especially the earlier work. So I remember in the 60s, when I first became captivated with motorcycles, there was a bunch of choppers like this, and they pulled up to a Rexall drugstore, and the guys were on them. And this brings back that moment for me. It was a deja vu, not the same thing, but it brought back an experience to me, and that's why I appreciate what you do, because it brings me back to a simpler and better time.
I'm not going to say better, okay, because I'll come to that later, maybe when we get to newer pictures. It was definitely a simpler time,
Yes.
especially as a photographer. Those 3 pictures, I don't know if they were all taken the same year, that maybe I took 6 or 7 rolls of black and white film, and that's it. I think I took 1 or 2 rolls of color film. So
yeah, things were different then, because you couldn't,
you're not looking at the back of the camera to see how it came out. You're kind of going, shit, I hope I got a good exposure on that. And when I process the film in the darkroom and then get into making some prints.
Yeah, I know as an amateur, I took a lot of pictures, and when I developed them, I'm like, that's not what I took, or at least I didn't think so.
Right.
Didn't work out. So yeah, let's roll to some more pictures, because trying to capture this. So this one, I spent a lot of time in New York City. I remember, when the towers were there, but just to see some guys rolling down in Manhattan like that on bikes and stuff, and I love the composition, love the color, love the angle. So what was going on with this one?
That's a group of bikes, or at least part of the group that I was with that day. I asked some guys to go out riding around New York. At the time, this was 81, so I was already doing assignments for Easyriders then. And I had it in my head that you could show bikers a tour of New York, which is what this was, and they would look at it differently, even though they'd seen all the pictures of New York. They're going to look at it different. They're going to look at it closer, because they put themselves in it. They see choppers in there, bikers in there, and it's like all of a sudden they're looking closer at the pictures. And I tried to relate what that was like riding around the Big Apple at the time. And I remember saying how, the potholes are so big that if you weren't careful, you find yourself face to face with the downtown IRT subway. It was like,
Yep.
Felt like you're going through a war zone sometimes. But of course, then you look at what I've been bringing up about history and historical context, and those towers are gone.
Yes.
It's pretty crazy.
It sure is. And I was in New York in the 80s, and I know what that was like. New York, it was not fun to be. Those roads were rough. Riding around that city was rough, and the
city was rough.
That's when you would go down to Times Square, and Times Square wasn't as glitzy and family oriented as it is now.
Exactly. We actually went to Times Square with this group and went all around the city taking pictures, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's jump to a few more here. So this one, okay, we just does anybody actually name this picture? Because I can imagine all kinds of interesting names people could have for this one.
I do have a name for it. This is one of my limited edition prints. So as far as my work goes, I've obviously taken tens of thousands of pictures, but I've picked out about 250 at this point, and it's growing. It changes. Some of them are old black and white. Some are fairly new. None are too new, because I like to sit on things for a few years. And if I like them enough, then I blow them up and I exhibit them. This is one that was more because of what it's about. This is the end of an era, really, because when those toilets burned down in City Park in 1981, they closed it. They closed the park, and they closed it for good. There's another side to the story, and that was that the bikers, we were all really fed up. They weren't cleaning they weren't emptying them. It stank like crazy. It's like not having them. Let's just burn them down. And that's what they did. And this shot was actually used in a special a National Geographic special about Sturgis, and they used this photo in there.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's pretty cool.
That's what ended, and really, that's how the Buffalo Chip got going.
Sturgis,
yeah, it is. City Park closed, and bam, Buffalo Chip happened.
Yeah, when he talks about that, he says he, wakes up one morning, he's having coffee and notices there's a couple tents pitched on his property and went down there, and that gave him the idea for the buffalo chip. And look what we've got now. So
Exactly.
extraordinary journey for him as well. So yeah, I got a kick out of that picture, and so I'm glad you gave us some great insight on that. So let's bring up this one now. Where's this one shot at? Because I think I know, but
It's in Amsterdam, and it's the
yeah,
Red Light
okay,
District, and Hell's Angels Clubhouse was there. And I just ridden to Amsterdam with a group out of Hamburg, the Hell's Angels out of Hamburg, that were going to the funeral. I can't even remember why I was in Hamburg, but anyway, so yeah, it's just I don't know. It's a time and a place, right?
it is. And so the reason my family's from Eindhoven, my family's Dutch, and
Oh,
so
so you could relate.
seeing this, I know, bike culture is alive and well in Holland and Germany and stuff like that. And, I think that sometimes people, differently because of the time you've spent in Europe, what that culture is like, and people tend not to think about here in America, how vibrant that culture is overseas and fervent. You can go to Sweden and the riders that are there, in Italy when we used to ride in Italy, and um, come across guys, and they, the reactions were always remarkable, especially if you were on Harleys, because, there was only so many people could afford Harley. So you'd see them on, everything from Moto Guzzi's to bicycles with leathers because they just couldn't afford a bike yet.
This when I was in Amsterdam there, I also put a little tour together, and it was riding around Amsterdam with a group of bikes, some Dutch people I'd met. And there were a few 45s in the group because there are so many 45 flatheads that were left over as war surplus, wrapped in
Yep.
cotton, like brand new friggin' bikes. So that was really popular that time. But one thing, whether it was the 1% motorcycle clubs or just the general culture, that year I also photographed the Super Rally in Denmark in 1981. And I think they loved American culture and what they saw of it, whether it was represented in the Wild Ones with Marlon Brando or the film Easyrider, the magazines that we put out. I think they took what they saw, which was often imagery, and that could have been as simple as the picture of Hollister in Life magazine from 1948, which is what led to the movie The Wild Ones. And
Sure.
that picture later was proved to be posed. The guy sitting back on his panhead with beer bottles all around. But they took that imagery, and that's all they had. And they took it to an extreme. So I think in a lot of ways, they went much further with the look and with the passion for the motorcycles than we could have ever imagined here.
You know what? I would agree with that 100%. And you're even seeing, like in Russia, and you look at somebody like Paulina and stuff, what she's doing over there, there's that culture is strong as well. And really surprised by the customization that they're doing and what they put into their bikes, and the creativity and stuff is alive and well there. And I know with some of the guys I know in South Africa and Australia and stuff like that, same thing.
In Russia, I've had 4 trips there. I've judged bike shows in Moscow, and the last thing before COVID, and got back March 3rd of 2020, just as COVID was really taking off. Got back from Siberia, and we photographed the Lake Baikal ice racing, which is just amazing to be in Siberia in the winter. But boy, you saw the extreme of what people get into, and also taking them out to the lake, and some great customizers there. But then they had people like a guy that took a Bugatti, was it a Bugatti? Not a Bugatti, what's the other, not a Rolls Royce, but like a Rolls Royce.
Bentley.
Bentley, yes. Took a Bentley and put it on a track, made it a track like a bulldozer. I mean, crazy. Can you imagine doing that?
They do. They put some crazy stuff out there, and it's so much fun to look at, because I'll go down a rabbit hole and start looking at the bikes that are out there, and then the next thing you know, you start looking at all these other vehicles and different types of transportation that they've converted to, run out there.
We had hot rods. There was motorcycle racing a hovercraft or a motorcycle racing a helicopter. It was like balls to the wall. Everything went. We had so much fun. It was one of the greatest trips. So.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, now that's cool. That's something I would like to one day see in person, because that's got to be absolutely extraordinary. So we're going to pull up some more pictures here. So now I don't know where this is at, but I just, that's a cool picture.
Yeah, you know where it's at.
No, I'm not sure.
That's the band shell in Daytona Beach.
Oh, okay. Yeah, now I realize it. I couldn't work it out in my head.
Yeah, and we used to have the Rat's Hole shows right there. And anyway, I just saw this guy. This was, I think, around 85 or 6. He's such a character that I don't know. It poses more questions. I don't know anything about him. Probably if it was now, I probably would have done a little interview with him. But sometimes it's just cool to look at it and wonder about the guy who, right now, if he's alive, he'd be in his mid-80s, probably.
Sure.
And a lot of people in the world we're in have pretty tough lives, and a lot of them don't live that long. So, yeah.
Well, in this picture, to me, I just thought, the subject matter, but just the contrast and the beauty of what you're drawing out there is just fantastic. That sky in the background, the way the stone is so vibrant, the way he stands out, against that backdrop. I just think it's a fantastic picture.
Thank you.
So let's roll to the next one. I love this picture. Yeah, I got to tell you, I just love this picture. To me, this is a picture that people, they should go to your site, all right, and they should order this picture, because this is something to frame and put on the wall in your office, at your home, whatever. That's a great picture. So tell me about this one.
Well, of course, it's film, and most likely Kodachrome, like as Paul Simon sang about that beautiful film. It was my film of choice, and I loved it. And so really, it's full frame. All my older work is not cropped, and it's not manipulated. My new work, I started cropping about, 6-7 years ago. Probably a lot because some friends were really just getting on me saying, what am I doing? You could make it better. And I knew you could, but I didn't. It's like once you go there, it's a rabbit hole. And so now I do crop a lot, but I do realize also, especially when I'm shooting from a bike sitting 65 miles an hour going backwards, not knowing what's coming, that, and you're bouncing around, you don't have such an exact ability to frame. So I've been much more liberal with cropping now. Back then I didn't crop at all. And again, this is one of those pictures that I just think represents the simplicity of what life was like when I started with all this, a pup tent, a bike, and a sunset, right?
That's exactly it. And that's something that in traveling across America, there's been times where I've just been somewhere, going across Minnesota, and you see some people, they're heading to the rally, and they got the tent set up. Sometimes they set it right up off the side and use the side of the bike as part of one wall and whatever else. But yeah, it just really captures the simple part and the essential part of what the biking and nomadic lifestyle is like. So let's bring up another one here. So 2 pictures here. So the one on the left, I know where that's at, and everything. And that's for anybody that hasn't been to one of the anniversary years, 5-year anniversary years of Harley. I mean, that's quite a scene, isn't it?
It sure is. Now, especially, I'm guessing that this was 1998, because I shot it on film. And I by 2003, which would have been the 100th, I was shooting digital in 2003. 98, I was still film. So I'm guessing this was film for the 95th anniversary. And it was such an amazing build-up to the 100th anniversary, really for 10 years. Every year, it was getting closer and closer. And the build-up to it was quite exciting. And it was amazing for the industry and amazing for the motorcycle world, the culture, and the bikes, for everything. But yeah, it was quite something when you arrived in Milwaukee, and then they had this ride into town. Just quite the parade, closing the whole interstate in 2 directions.
yeah, the anniversary years are phenomenal. A lot of fun. You know, those that same highway there. As a matter of fact, I was with the governor and myself were captains on a ride, and they shut the whole highway down. So there it was. You know, it was Labor Day weekend, and they shut down the whole highway so that we came off north of the city and came
Yeah.
back down, and we went back down to the House of Harley there, and I was like just ripping down the road, and there was no traffic, and you seen everybody blocked, so they couldn't get on the highway. That was a lot of fun. So
And it's such
um,
a motorcycle centric, enthusiastic town that, yeah, it's hard to go wrong, right?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then talking about another picture I absolutely love, you know, that when I say, you know, something I can see, you know, on my wall in my house, this picture I think is phenomenal. You've
That's
just
hanging in my
captured the
living
light,
room.
the contrast, the shine coming off the bikes. I love this picture.
Thank you. That's actually hanging in my living room now. But, um, you know, it's interesting because I remember I was on my bike riding through the mountains and I came across this scene and stopped and took some photos. But, and it was a few years later before I saw it again. I'd never seen it before and I'd been on the road. So I think it was, may have been new that particular year. But I went back a few years later and it was so disappointing because there were vendors all set up and it had become like this little event there, you know, where again, how everything gets commercialized. And it was so
Sure.
disappointing to me, but I really enjoyed the fact of discovering it the first time, coming around a turn and seeing this neon lit diner and so cool and had so much feeling and character to it.
Yeah, I like I said, I absolutely love that picture. That's you know, and there's so many of yours that you like that I like, and going through some of your stuff and saying, wow, what do I pick? But this one was, you know, this is one that I've seen before. And when I came across it, I'm like, oh yeah, definitely got it. We could definitely got to throw this one up and we got to talk about that. So absolutely beautiful work. And that's, you know, that's to me, you know, a picture like that, that's high art to me, you know, to be able to capture just such quality and contrast and beauty. I just absolutely love it. So, yeah, I think everybody needs, like I said earlier, I think everybody needs to go on and order this picture from you and get it framed up and display it because it's extraordinary.
Thank
So
you.
we're going to roll to a few more pictures here. So now this one, you know, I think this is, you know, we talk about the subculture, but you know, we talk about what bikers are, and you know, we've both learned and we both know through various things we've been involved is they're charitable, you know, and you know, they're real human beings that sometimes I think's lost. So tell me what was happening here.
You know, it's interesting because I could talk a lot about any photograph of mine. And sometimes I wonder, is it, am I doing a disservice to the viewers? Because maybe people, for one thing, I enjoy the fact that you went on blind without having talked to me and just picked pictures you like rather than asking me to pick my favorites. And so I think that's good because A, it's pictures that you're drawn to and it keeps this program fresh with something new. Um, and in this case, there's a lot behind it. I was on a shoot there. I was invited to do this shoot for no actual purpose. So it's in Cuba and it's in Havana. I got a call one day. I answered the phone and it was Pirelli Metzler out of Milan. And they asked, you know, is this Michael Lichter? Yes, a very Italian accent, and said, you know, would you be interested in going to Cuba? And I'm pinching myself because, of course, the answer is yes. And of course, it was still hard to get in back then in 2009. I actually had to fly through Toronto and, you know, hide my passport, not get it stamped and all that kind of stuff. But so I ended up there and they really said, we're just, I think they knew that my being there, I would get publicity. And I did. I got a lot of, these photos went pretty far and wide. It was actually a 22-page feature in Hot Bike Japan, which is this gorgeous, oversized, beautifully printed magazine. At least it was at the time. So they had a film crew down there and had given some tires out and they were filming all this stuff. And they invited me to take pictures of whatever I wanted. They were photographing the Harleystas and I get to tag along. And then I was actually doing my own shooting when they weren't even filming when I was doing it. In this case, this is a father and daughter. And keep in mind that in Cuba, where, you know, it's a communist society. They don't really want big brands like Harley Davidson and Walt Disney, right? But
Right.
here we have Snow White and this Harley biker, right? I call the photo dress up, and it's got more meaning than just the little girl being dressed up, because the dad, Harleys are so terribly expensive there. It would be several years' salary for sure, or many years' salary to buy an old Panda, because there's nothing newer than 19, I don't know, you'll see 40, I think 1949 Panheads would be the last years that they had. So this guy could not afford a bike, but he was on like a 175 Suzuki or something. But he had all the accoutrements, which just fascinated me, including, you know, key fobs and the chains and all this stuff and the patches. And his daughter had all the accoutrements of being Snow White and a princess, but she was missing something. And in this case, it was her crown. And so you see her pleading with her father to make her complete, in my eyes, you know, like she was crying and needed this. And here he is bending down in a very loving and touching way to make his daughter whole and make her complete by giving her this crown. So I just think it's a very touching moment.
I think that's an extraordinary story. I really appreciate you telling us that. Wow, that's a beautiful, beautiful story. So hard to move on from that, but we're going to do that. And so, uh, you know, we know where this is at,
Yeah,
but
can't miss it.
to me, it's just this is an extraordinary picture. The composition is absolutely beautiful, and you know, it's so describe, you know, describe what we've got here, and you know what you were doing there in Bonneville.
Well, you know, certainly when you go to Bonneville, I think most of the pictures you're going to take are streamliners or any kind of bikes racing down this long track into their 1 mile trap where they're timed. Uh, and this for me is this very quiet moment. It's incredibly graphic. I consider it more of a beauty shot than anything, but it's
Yes.
sort of a quiet moment just before takeoff. You know, I think I called it ready for takeoff. I have to remember, but so it's the Bub bike just before it started its land speed record run, where it went over 250 miles an hour to break the record, 252, I believe, at the time. And you know, the sun at that time of day, there's a number of pictures I have. Usually you say the midday is the worst time for a photographer to go out with the harsh shadows and the light and the color and whatnot. But sometimes things work. And in this case, I think it does. Now, a lot of times I'm down on my knees shooting, or I'm looking for high angles, but in this case, it's eye level. And I think that to me is what makes it. Just about 15 feet away from me here, I have a 40-inch by 60-inch print of this hanging on the wall, which to me, some prints I like small and intimate, and this one I like big. I just got an order for this in a 20 by 30 today from Italy that I have to ship. But it sort of, to me, because I was at eye level, that if you're looking at the picture and you're at eye level, it feels like you're there. You're looking down on this bike, which is so low to the ground. And then you have this perspective, the distance away from you, which in Bonneville seems endless. And it's that slight curvature at the end. You know, you feel the shape of the earth, how fast this bike was about to go, and how it was going to shake violently and get salt stuck and dug into it everywhere. And this very beautiful, calm, quiet moment before takeoff.
Yeah, that's an extraordinary picture, and I just you know, between just looking at the sleekness of the bike, and you see how narrow it is, but then when you see the shadow and how that, you know, gives you that perspective of what it's, you know, would appear from the side as well, is pretty
Exactly.
extraordinary.
Thank you.
So, and then so we're gonna jump to the next one here. Um, I really like this, and you know, now this is one of those pictures I can't tell you why, but I like it.
You know, for me, I think bikers see themselves in this, that people all have these, you know, I mean, some people do have shops that you can eat off the floor, but so many of us are not quite that organized, and you have stuff everywhere. And this guy really had stuff everywhere. He's a phenomenal mechanic, really known as probably the best Harley mechanic in Cuba. And he actually came to the States. He got in and traveled around for a year and was going to get a job and all this. And he missed home too much. He went back home and back to this Yeah, and his name's Sergio, and I just love his little shop, and he knew where everything is. And not this year, the year after, this was 2009. In 2010, I went back. I visited Sergio again, and Matt Olson came. Not he joined me. We didn't go together. He couldn't go as long. He was just there for a few days, and I took him to visit Sergio. And I let Sergio, and I said, Sergio, test this little whippersnapper, would you? And we go upstairs, another flight. This is on the second story. And he had another story upstairs, and he had potbelly stuff, and there was stuff everywhere. And I mean, you're walking like you're trying to tiptoe between parts and engines and trannies and gears and all this stuff on the floor. And he opens up the potbelly stuff, and he took a part out of there, and he's like, "Okay, you little whippersnapper, what's this?" And Matt Olson like just knew exactly year, model, what bike it came off of, everything. It was so cool.
That's pretty neat. Yeah,
Really
I love the shadows, and I love I
backlight.
just love the feel. You can almost smell the room and the parts and everything else, and that's what when a picture can evoke, a sense of smell and touch and everything else, that's an extraordinary thing. So we're gonna
Oil,
hop to another picture here.
oil
So
permeating the air. This is somebody that I think you're getting ready to have on the air.
yeah, this is somebody we're gonna be
Oh,
talking to.
is this? No, actually not. This is Doug Danger. So
Oh, okay. Is that I wasn't sure.
yeah, this is
So
Doug Danger, and it was shot in Austin at the Republic of Texas Rot Rally. And he's just doing another one of his jumps. I think I don't remember if it was. I think it was 12 cars, and just another one of those days. It's tough because these are things that happen that it may only last for 1 second, and you got to situate yourself and predict where to be and what's going to be the best spot, and then hopefully get it.
so I've seen you shoot races, and obviously here's a jump, and know, um in all manners of guys on bikes, that are risking, men and women risking, life and limb. Is there any intrepidation or concern on your part that maybe you're going to witness or capture something that may be, you know, very detrimental to an individual or a family?
Not typically. I mean, I know I've been in situations where people have been hurt. There was one situation where I was shooting backwards off a bike and have a little talk for this group before we left. We're out on an interstate, and he's surfing on his. He decides to get up and surf on the seat, with hands up in the air. And I'd already told everybody not to do that, and not specifically. I said no grandstanding. Just watch the road, safety first. It's a group of 80 people. You don't want to mess around. And I have like 3 frames where there's a bike riding next to me without a rider on it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought those could be the last pictures I ever took. But as it turns out, the guy walked away. I don't know how he did it. I mean, he fell off at highway speed. There's things like that. But I don't think about that ahead. I've shot people doing all sorts of crazy stuff. And then again, I have over 25,000 miles sitting backwards in the saddle behind a rider shooting riders, and people say, "Oh my God, how can you do that?" I saw somebody shooting for the Discovery Channel, and they were in that same seat, and they went like 10 minutes, and we were going to share, but they had priority. It was their shoot, really. I was going to get in it when they were on breaks and stuff. In that case, usually I've done it coast to coast, Atlantic to Pacific 5 times, in addition to all over the world doing these kind of rides. But that day, I remember that it was a woman, and she said, "Oh my God, forget it. It's yours. She can't do it." She said, "If I
Right.
wait any longer, I'm throwing up, and it's not going to happen." And it's like, I don't know. I just don't think about it. I get in there. I don't focus on it. They say, "Well, what about you? Must have so much trust." I just don't think about it. I do my best, and I've had problems. I've had some crashes and wrecks, and overall, I've been lucky. I've had some pretty tough stuff happen too, but I'm still here to tell about it. With a
Yeah.
few
Thank
screws
God you are.
here and there and
So
aches and pains here and there, but I'm still here and at it.
yeah, well, that might just be age too. Who knows? So I know I'm getting those aches and pains for sure.
Yeah.
So let's jump to the next pictures we got here. So one of my all-time favorites. I wasn't at that show. I wish I would have. I mean, I've seen Kid Rock there, but Wow. That was
It's
that
a
was
moment.
definitely in the moment. Now, are you up on Woody's up where Woody has his little balcony, so to speak?
Well, I'll tell you the story then. So while I'm associated with the Buffalo Chip, I've not had the best access that you can imagine. As a matter of fact, I get very little access, and typically I'm just like another tourist there. That particular day, I took it upon myself, like I really wanted the shot. I have to say, I was sicker than a dog. I mean, I had such a bad head cold. Uh, it was a This was a Sunday night. My father had died 48 hours earlier. I mean, I was
Oh,
just
boy.
a mess, right? And I had my two assistants there that day, and they were down by the stage. I wasn't, like I said, I was feeling terrible, and I see that they have the platform that you do the zip line from, and
Yep.
it wasn't being used. And I go, shit, I can get up there, and I just climbed up and got to the top and moved over to the edge, and I took like 2 or 3 frames, and then some security guy grabbed me and said, "You can't be there, get down," Alice, and like just pulled me down, right? And that was it. But I did get this frame in there. I have to say, I was really disappointed to find out. I don't know if at that time, but since then, there's technology now where people can screw something into their camera and it senses a flash of a lightning bolt and shoots the picture. And it's like, that was so disappointing to me that you could now automate this whole thing, because
Sure.
this is the only lightning bolt I've ever gotten in my life. Now you can get it on demand, I guess, right? But anyway, so I got the shot. I didn't know that I had it, but I had to get down. I had no options there, and I met up with my assistants and I said, "Hey guys, I'm out of here. I can't handle it." And just because I was feeling terrible, so they came back. We had a house that came back separately, and my assistant Melissa Shoemaker is actually in this photo on the right on the side of the stage there. And kind of a neat aside to this is that when I showed it for the first time, which was 2015, and I blew it up 20 by 30 inches and sharp as a tack. And we finished setting up the exhibition. It was called Naked Truth that year. One of the motorcycles art shows at the Buffalo Chip. And that particular photo was right near the exit door. And it was after midnight. We shut the lights for the most part. We were walking out the exit door, locking it behind us because the show was set up. It was opening the next morning. And unfortunately, I have a brain that never really wants to stop. Thankfully, the doctor has found something that will help me so I could sleep a little bit. But we're walking out the door, and I go, "Oh my God, I have a magnifying glass in my little office kit. I got an idea." And we turn the lights back on, go back in. There was a drill back there. I found some little chain, and I hung a chain. And sure enough, it was the most. There were 105 pictures in the exhibition that year, 105 framed photos of mine. And I'll tell you, everybody went over and they're pulling that magnifying glass and looking for themselves and looking for their friends. And you can't imagine how many people found themselves in it, including my assistant, who saw herself shooting Kid Rock from the side of the stage. So it was pretty cool. But another little aside to this picture, like I said, there's so many stories behind all of them. So I leave the Buffalo Chip, and all I wanted to do was get some medicine. I needed some tissues desperately. So I stop in the little convenience store right near the interstate at exit 32. I go in, and I'm walking around, and I can't find him anywhere. I'm looking. I finally ask the guy, he says, "Oh yeah, we're out of him." I'm like going, seriously? Oh crap. So I get back, and I'm in a silver Envoy. It's a SUV GMC. And I get in, and I go a block away. I'm about to turn onto the interstate to go one exit to where our house was. And I'm surrounded by 9 cars with flashing lights, cops and federal agents, and guns out and flashlights. And I'm like, oh, what the A? You know, on the loudspeaker, "Keep your hands on the steering wheel." It was a sting operation that I interrupted, and they were looking for somebody with Colorado plates and a silver SUV
Oh
at
my
that
goodness.
convenience store. It just happened to be me. So,
Yeah.
oh my
Wrong
God.
place, wrong time, huh?
Oh, terrible case of mixed identity there, right?
Yeah. Did you pull out the camera afterwards and get a couple of good shots?
No, but I couldn't touch anything. I'm telling you, it was like hands on the
I
wheel
know.
the whole time. I'd never seen anything like this. And they demanded my cell phone, which I said, you can't have it. You don't have a warrant. And they go, they cited all these regulations, federal regulations that gave them the right. I was like, holy crap, this is way too much, out of my league here. So
absolutely. So, we've touched a couple of times on something that that I think is has been near and dear to your heart, and that's the Motorcycle as Art exhibit.
Yeah.
And so I came across something, and this is something that you had said in an interview, and says, as a curator, I consider myself a curator and producer of shows. That's what I do. I find the people to fit what I am looking for and tell the story I'm trying to tell. And the story develops as the year of putting this together goes on. And I've experienced a number of those shows, and I've always been mesmerized by them, not just by the motorcycles that are set up, but the art that's around there. This year, your photographs, being displayed and everything else. Tell me about that process and how we talked a little bit about the skinny, and these various things, Tell me about the process of you coming to, saying, hey, this is what I want to do. A couple of years ago, you did all 35 and under people, and stuff like that. How do you choose that subject and that direction?
Well, certain things are broad themes. So one thing that I kind of started focusing on around 2011, I think, is that we needed to embrace younger people in the industry and in the whole custom bike world more. And so and in Sturgis as well. And so I really tried to involve younger people more, and also lesser known builders. So I've tried to do that, because prior to that, it was a lot of bigger builders. And we had great help from, we had trucking sponsors that brought all the bikes in, which made a huge difference. It allowed me to be more creative with my themes and get more people that wouldn't necessarily be able to come to Sturgis or afford to come to Sturgis, or maybe they couldn't come for as long, and enabled us to have the show for as long as it goes on. So I'll look at things where I'm thinking, where's the industry at? Where are we at in this culture? I saw, in there, like 07, I did one, Built for Speed, because I felt how custom bikes were so inspired by racing, and that was never really addressed. I think it is now, but at the time it wasn't. And so I did that Built for Speed. I've done others like it in the years since. So to me, I saw a need to draw some attention to it, and I invited people that would have bikes that would be inspired by some race discipline. And I included some race bikes in it. We had the Easyriders Streamliner in that year, and we had, other land speed record, or a double engine drag bike, or things like that. But then just great looking choppers that would be inspired in different ways. Some would be inspired by a board track bike, or some, look at the Arlen Ness's diggers from the late 60s and early 70s. They're definitely drag race inspired, So that's what that was about. And I'll see, I did, we mentioned the 2015 Naked Truth show. For that, I really felt that builders were getting better and better at working with their hands at shaping metal. More and more people getting English wheels and really shaping metal. Like silly putty, some of them could do it, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I wanted to draw more attention to it. Also, a lot of the shows that I do, I think the builders really appreciate them, that they spend a lot of time looking at bikes. We put these bikes on big pedestals, and we have theater lighting, big lights that focus light on every bike. And it's very dramatic. It feels like you're really in a museum. And that particular show, it was for the general public, because a lot of that was for builders too, to highlight each other. And so for that show, I come up with the idea, and I develop the parameters for it. And then one of the hardest parts is coming up with an appropriate name. So I had the idea that I wanted to do a show where none of the bikes would have any paint on them whatsoever. It'd all be raw metal. And that's when I came up with Naked Truth. And I'll tell you, for that show, to walk in, I think there were 38 bikes that year, and you walk in the door and you see a sea of metal with these gallery spotlights on them. And I actually saw some people crying. The one person that was in the show came in crying to see her bike in there. it's very dramatic. But for that show, you couldn't cover anything up. It was show off your wells, show how you made the stuff. And I'll tell you, the builders spent hours and hours looking at each other's bikes and really getting into the details. So again, it's I get these ideas. It takes time to develop them, come up with a theme. Hot Leathers has been tremendous in supporting us with coming up with. Paul Resnick has come up with some great logos, and it just develops as the year goes on.
That's phenomenal.
We're getting ready for next year's show.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm going to be there and stuff like that. So I can't, I always look forward to it. So
we have a wonderful logo that Paul Resnick just came up with. He actually came up with a spectacular logo that was really pushing the envelope. And it was the first time in all the years, and this is my 22nd year of doing this show. And we actually could not run it. It was just a little too provocative. And in this day and age, I respect that it was a little overtly out of PC. So
okay.
Yeah, we had to move on from it. But he did come up with a beautiful, beautiful, wonderful second version that I think actually graphically, probably like more. They're both incredible. But maybe I'll show you the other one on the side there. But the name of this year's show is Emerging Virgin.
Emerging Virgin.
Emerging Virgin, yes.
Okay.
And what's the subhead? That I got to look at. I can't remember because really, and the logo we just agreed on really a few days ago. So I'm sorry to take my attention away here, but I do want to get you the correct name. Emerging Virgin. And the idea for this year's show is that not that they're virgins, and what is a virgin, but in this case, it's just somebody that after 21 years of doing this show, I have I've showcased an incredible number of builders, I mean, more than a couple of hundred different builders, right? It was amazing. And most of the well-known ones have been in. So, I wanted to say, let's look at people that have never been in. And it doesn't mean people that are young and are just doing their first bike. Some of them could be my age, but just have never been in or never been given that opportunity. So anyway, this year it's okay. So Emerging Virgin Coming Out Custom is what it's called.
I love it. Now I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be a lot of fun because I know some of the guys that been in there for the first time. Jeremy Valentine, I think, was first time this year. And
exactly.
He was.
You heard this already, then.
He was thrilled. I mean, it was like a highlight. And I was so happy to see his bike there because we'd actually featured in the Bike Build Challenge, and he ran over. He's like, "Oh, I got to get my picture with you," and I'm like, "Dude, you're the builder, and you guys are doing extraordinary stuff." So I was humbled by that.
Well, I'm going to give you a sneak peek at the logo then, which I think is beautiful. I don't know how well it's going to show because it's on my phone here, but.
Oh yeah, that's I love it. Yeah, that's nice.
You see the praying hands, and I think he did a gorgeous job. Nut and a screw.
Wow, and the colors really pop on that. I love that. So that's going to be a fun one. So let's see what else we got for pictures because I don't know if we've. Oh yeah, so this picture. So I just kind of wanted to wrap up. Kind of wrapping up with this picture, but what a great photo this is.
Well, thank you.
And so.
Coming through a tunnel like this and with those off colors. Now, again, like I said, I do crop now. I don't think this was cropped very much if it was cropped. And I will enhance color in terms of making it look the best it can, but I don't change it. So in other words, this really is the color of sodium vapor lights in a tunnel. Our eyes may see them as white when we're in the tunnel, but this is really the color of those lights. And to me, a tunnel like this, I don't know, it suggested time travel to me. And so that's what I call the photo.
I could see that.
I call it time travel. And I think there's multiple levels of that because the person in the photo, first off, they're on a 1915 Harley Davidson, Indian, 1915 Indian. And the year here is 1914. So it's 99 years old. I've since photographed the same person on this bike in 16 and 18. When the bike was over 100 years old, going from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. The person on it, his name is Dimi, spelled Niimi, from Japan. And he doesn't speak a lick of English. So imagine getting on a 100-year-old bike, having to ride all day long with just a little bit of tools that you have with you, and that's it, no support. And you got to fix it as you go. And I don't know, and he's dressed in these old clothes and the oilcloth and his old wooden toolbox strapped to the bike. And it has this feeling of time and I don't know, all this character built into it. And I love it. So I called it time travel.
I love the name, and I imagine, between doing the cross country chase and, most of all, the cannonball's gotta be a lot of fun for you.
Absolutely. It's been a blast. I've gotten to amazing places, and more and more. In the middle of COVID, I thought I was almost retired because Easyriders was pretty much gone. It was gone for me. And 2 years of not publishing, or they came out with like 2 fashion-looking magazines. But I was doing some cool stuff. I do a lot of work with Dennis Kirk now, and do these really cool, in-depth blog profiles instead of an 800-word feature. I'm doing 2,000, 2,500 words, and trying to get more in depth and looking at things hopefully a little differently than others, and which is fun. I do both events and profiles. So I was doing that and doing some other work for a few clients, but obviously I was pretty shut down. And then Easyriders came back as classic Easyriders, and boy, I'll tell you, the rubber hit the road because I've been traveling nonstop and all over the place. They're running, I don't know, I'm getting anywhere from 55 to 70 some odd pages a month in a magazine that's not all that big, and plenty of other stuff. Right this month, can't even think of all the features. I think 8 features I have in there. But and on top of that, the AMA ran a beautiful feature of my trip to Nepal. I did it twice in 2018 and 2019, and did a 14-page layout in the AMA Motorcyclist magazine. If you're not a member of the AMA, consider joining just to get the magazine, because it's a great magazine and it supports a good cause. So there's that. And another thing with all these travels that I do, I just got back from Italy again. We go every January. We go to Japan every December for Moon Eyes. And I get to do this with my son. We've been working together now for 4.5 years. And my son, Sean, and I get along well. I just feel like I'm the luckiest dad around to be able to get to do this with my son and share these experiences. We've, again, been to Siberia and Japan and Germany and Switzerland and Austria, Italy, all over this country. We're going to Daytona next week. We're in St. Louis last week. Yeah, a lot of fun.
Did you go see our friend Steven when you went to Switzerland?
Which Steven?
Grimes?
Sorry. Oh, Stefan.
Stefan. Yeah, I always do that.
Okay. Steven, I don't know. Stefan, I know. Yes,
Stefan,
I photographed his new ice racer. I photographed that.
Yeah.
And he won Best of Show at Motorbike Expo.
I saw that.
Hung out together. He's a great person. Lives in Geneva. Well, he lives in France and works in Geneva, or lives in Geneva, works in France. One of the way. Every day he's going over the border. And
I think he lives in Geneva, and he works in France. Yeah. So great guy.
It's so wonderful seeing all my friends over there, and it's a small world. You say, traveling this big world, but really it's a pretty small world. Whether I go to Japan or we're having dinners in Italy with all sorts of friends, and it's just so great and so intimate and so nice that we can connect this way.
Absolutely. So we decided we were going to do something in ending these shows, and so we're posing 3 questions to everybody, and I think it's going to be interesting to see what we hear from folks and stuff. So we're going to give you the 3 questions. So we're going to start out with what would be Michael Lichter's dream bike?
God, that's tough. You're putting me on the spot now.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do.
I don't know if there is one. That's really tough. Let me start with several bikes that I like and that I would enjoy. My Billy Lane Bobber is just so cool that it's fun. But basically, there's no suspension. and it's jockey shift, and it's cooler than could be, and it feels so good to be on, right? But for a long trip, that's not going to work so well. And my Road King that I've had for over 20 years, 25 years, I passed it on to somebody. We were having too many problems, and they took it over and turned it into something that I wish I had back now. But and that's great. I mean, a work bike to me, that Road King was great because my camera bag fit in the tour pack, which I had on, and the tour pack could come off if you don't need it. Windshield could come off, and I love that bike. And it's almost like the perfect bike in a lot of ways. Now, in the garage now, because when that took a crap in Sturgis, BMW was incredible to me, and they loaned me an R1800, which is sitting in the garage now. But of course, it's 0 degrees outside and snow on the ground, so it's not going outside right now. But it's so much fun to ride. I mean, it puts a big smile on my face.
That's a smooth bike, isn't it?
It is smooth, and it is powerful. I'm amazed at how many comments I get on it when I park, too. I mean, yeah, I just would have never thunk, right? But it's really cool. So my perfect bike is kind of a combination of a lot of things. In a lot of ways, it's not that showy of a bike. Like my Billy Lane Bobber is so cool, and it's an eye-turner. But I'm not one to really take care of it. I abuse things because I'm hard on stuff. I'm hard on my gear. I just want to get off and get the shot. So I grab the bike and run. And so it doesn't have to be the best looking bike. To me, it's a bike that, and it doesn't have to be the biggest bike either. I mean, 1800 is steroids, right?
Sure.
There's a new Royal Enfield that's the twin. I think it's called the Continental. I have not ridden it, but I'm hoping this year I'd really like to go to India and actually ride that bike for a few weeks. I mean, I'd like to tour India on that bike. I think it'd be really cool. A father-son deal too.
Yeah.
But, and to me, in a lot of ways, that's a perfect bike. It's not so big. Hop on it, not so expensive. You could just cruise around. But there's aspects of all of them that I will say that BMW you can count on. It's going to keep ticking for a long time.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I sure do. So then, so we're gonna get you. We're gonna get you on another one.
To finish the last question. Let me at least say that I just enjoy riding on anything. Put a bike in front of me and say you can take it for a ride. Some guy let me ride. I was on a shoot in Canada, and there's a guy there with a cafe'd out 450 CB Honda that was my first bike. I'm like, oh my God. And he saw me drooling over, and he said, hey, you want to take it for a ride? I took that out of town. I went for a half hour on it. I had a grin from here to here. I mean, it was just an incredible bike. So to me, the perfect bike is a bike that makes you smile. Just something that makes you happy, and you don't have to worry about stuff. It's not too heavy. It's not too big. It just does what you need it to do. Get you where you want to go with a big smile on your face.
That's phenomenal. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, and I would agree with that. So our second question is, if you could ride with anybody, dead or alive, to go out and do a ride with, who would that be?
My son.
And I thought from what you were saying earlier, that's exactly what you'd say. So
I'd add to that, my best friend also. The three of us have gone riding, but if I could only pick one, I'm gonna have to pick my son. And
I think that's great.
I photographed a lot of famous people.
Sure.
On bikes and off bikes, and that doesn't do it for me.
That's a great answer, and I thought that was going to be the answer, and I think maybe we already got an answer for the last question. So, where in the world, would you like to ride?
Again, that's going back to my first answer. I won't be as long-winded about it because, like I said, any bike, put a bike in front of me, as long as it makes me smile and doesn't intimidate you with anything. It's not to this or to that, and it's just fun for riding, and it works great. You don't have to worry about it. And as far as where to ride, I will say that I love combining different passions, and I'm passionate about travel and culture. So I would love to, I actually just mentioned I'd really like to ride through India. What I'd really love to do, so if I could make it happen, I would love to ride from the Royal Enfield factory in the south of India and ride to Lhasa, Tibet. So that would be all the way through India, which I think is 5,000 or 6,000 miles, into Nepal, Kathmandu, keep going north, and then you go right by Everest Base Camp to Lhasa. And just from Kathmandu to Lhasa, you're talking about an elevation gain of 14, actually from the border to Kathmandu is about 14,000 foot elevation change.
That'd be, I can't imagine.
Now, I've done
That'd be
different parts of
extraordinary.
this in different ways, but I want to do it on a bike with my son. I don't know that they're going to let me back into Tibet again. I did do that overland. We did it when we did it, you had to have a guide. There's no way they're letting you loose with China. You know, you got to, everything's
Right.
controlled. And so we went from Everest Base Camp to Kathmandu, across the border, although we had to walk over the bridge. And again, that was 14,000 feet. We went from literally, we were at base camp is at about 18,000 feet. And we went from there and dropped into like a tropical forest.
Really?
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, going under like a waterfall that washed the Jeep we were in. You know, I mean, it was on some hairy, hairy roads. But that was an experience. So yeah, I'd say if I could only pick one trip, I might as well make it a long one, right? So it'd be probably
Absolutely
8,000 miles or something. And yeah, that'd probably be it.
That's extraordinary. So if anybody wants to buy your prints, I mean, and there's thousands of them, it's beautiful subject matter. There's so many different things, you know, where can they find that?
Well, on my website, which unfortunately only goes back to 2014 and we're not completed. 2015, 14, we're still finishing off. And as busy as I am right now, I don't know when I'm going to get back to doing the older stuff, but we're hoping to keep going back in years and adding to the site. So you can go there, and it's divided by events or by bikes, by the years of the events or the years of the bikes, or by builders, things like that. If you click on any picture, it does say, you know, it's available for purchase options. In general, on the site, to keep prices down and accessible, we offer only just two sizes, 8 by 12 and 10 by 15, that are really ideal, make beautiful frame pieces. A lot of people look for pictures of themselves or their friends, but there's a lot of beauty shots, like my black and white print of Early Morning with prosthetic leg leaning against a panhead in City Park in 1979, for example. You know, they go up in price as they sell, and people do collect the work. So those are what we exhibit. Those are still available, but you know, fewer and fewer of those, and there's others that are more available. But it's all depends on the size of the edition, how many are left, and so those can be ordered there right on the site, lichterphoto.com.
And then you're going to be out. You're going to be out practicing your craft here in Daytona, correct?
I will be. You know, I've been shooting the covers for Easyriders as well. We've done the first 6 of this new magazine. I'm hoping to shoot 2 covers down there while I'm there, and so 2 custom bikes with it. I'll do a profile, sort of a special feature on Sons of Speed as well, in addition to overall Bike Week, and a number of other things along the way.
Wonderful. And I want to just, one thing I want to throw out there that sometimes people, I tell people all the time before Sturgis or even during Sturgis or when I'm out and about, is that, you know, your Motorcyclist and Art exhibit is free. And
Yeah, absolutely.
people need to, you know, the Crossroads is free, but if you go around the back side of the Buffalo chip, you can enter in there, and that exhibit is free. No, I mean, so it's no charge. And I mean, really, I mean, it's one of the finest exhibits I've ever seen. I love museums. I love going and experience, you know, art and everything else. And this truly is art. And I would encourage anybody, if you're going to Sturgis, take the time to go, because it's a great, great show.
Come see the Emergent Virgins. And
Absolutely. So,
it's not open in the morning. It opens at about 2 o'clock, and then it's open right into the evening to 10. And it is free, even though it's at the East Gate. You tell people you're just going to the gallery, and you do not need to pay to get in.
Absolutely. So I just want everybody to know that. Michael, I really appreciate you join us tonight. I think this was a great time. It was very insightful, and just looking forward to seeing more of your great work, either in Easyrider or at your shows, or just seeing you out there doing your craft.
Well, it's a pleasure being on here. I'm honored to be one of your early guests on your new show, and I wish you and Cody and Tim all the best and success with this going forward.
Thank you very much, sir. All right. Good night, everybody.
Night. Thanks very much.